So in section 8.4 here, we're going to complete a whole hypothesis test. We're going to do a test for mean with a large sample, which means n greater than or equal 30. So that's what we'll assume, and then that means that by the central limit theorem, the x-bar distribution will be approximately normal, which means that our z statistic, our test statistic, is normally distributed, and that's what we need. So we are going back to our example for lead here. 15 parts per billion was our action level. That's our mu 0. Samples were taken from 30 randomly selected public schools. That's n. The sample mean for those schools was 16.2. That's x bar. And then the standard deviation here was 2.4. That's sigma. And then alpha was 0.05. So the test requirements are that the sample is a simple random sample. That is true. We checked that. Sample size is larger than 30. Yep, just makes it. Size 30. Our null and alternative we determined before. The null was mean equal 15. The alternative we're trying to establish mean greater than 15. That's step 1 in the hypothesis test. Step 2, select your level of significance alpha. That was given to us, 0.05. That's your probability of type 1 error. And then sketch our rejection region. So this is an upper tail test, so rejection region is going to be on the right. And if we bring in our common rejection region table here, we see alpha 0.05 upper tailed, 1.645 is our critical value. That is z 0.05. Next, we need to compute the test statistic. This is the formula for our test statistic. So let's see here. So x bar was 16.2 minus mu 0 is our 15. We're dividing by sigma was 2.4 here. And divide by square root of 30. So if you compute that on the calculator, the difference on the top is 1.2. I did that, got 2.74. And that 2.74 is about right here. So that's our z test, our test statistic. And that is in the rejection region. So step 5 is if the test statistic falls in rejection region, we reject the null. Well, our z test here was 2.74. That is greater than 1.645. So we reject H0. So that's our statistical conclusion. And now we want to state and interpret the formal conclusion. So when you state your conclusion, you always say there is or there is not sufficient evidence. In this case, since we rejected the null, there is sufficient evidence. To conclude that the alternative hypothesis is true because we rejected H0. So to conclude, mean greater than 15. Okay, so in other words, above the action level. And then whenever we reject the null hypothesis, we say that the result is statistically significant. So this is a statistically significant result at the alpha equal 0.05 level. Now, it may not always be practically significant. So, for example, if our X bar was 15.01, then if our sample size was large enough, we might still reject the null hypothesis. But then there's really, for practical purposes, in terms of damage to the body, there's not a practical significance to that difference. So always important to keep that in mind.